Hey, what's going on, you guys? It's Ace. Hi. Today I'm bringing you one of the off videos. So tomorrow we're gonna hop back into another Al Murray one. I was looking at Al Murray versus Americans or on Americans or whatever. Basically, I think it's a whole video of him just kind of making jokes on Americans, which I think it'll be a lot of fun. Anyway, today we're watching one that a couple of you have been asking for a while, and I kept on pushing it back, but it's finally time to get into it. It's gonna be the Revolution. So you guys have been asking about it. In fact, one of you actually gave me a link to the URL that you thought that I should watch, the video you thought I should watch. So I decided to check it out. So this one is by History Matters. It's just a 10-minute video, so it shouldn't be like more than 15 minutes overall. Yeah, I'm really excited. If you guys are new to the channel, hit that like button, hit that sub button, because I do post pretty much every day. I missed one day yesterday, but that's about it. And leave me a comment with what you guys want me to watch, because I do try to get to it, even if it takes a couple weeks for me to catch up. Anyway, with that being said, I'm going to sit back, I'm going to shut up, and go grab yourself a drink so we can get started.
1563 in the Habsburg Netherlands, also known as the 17 Provinces, looked like this. Its ruler at this time was a man called Philippe II, the King of Spain, who also ruled all of these territories across Europe. The 17 provinces were very wealthy, and so in Philippe's previous war with France had been taxed heavily, much to the annoyance of everyone there. Something that caused greater conflict was Philippe's religious policy enacted by Cardinal Antoine Perrenot de Granvelle. Granvelle brought with him the Spanish Inquisition, who sought to crack down on the increase in Protestantism in the south. This particular branch of Protestantism was Calvinism, named after its French leader Jean Calvin, whose views had spread from Switzerland through France and into the southern provinces. Granvelle wasn't well liked by the nobility of the 17 provinces, who were
I gotta tell you, just, I mean, it sounds like a really interesting topic, but God, dude, this guy never takes a breath. Seriously, I don't think he's paused once.
used to being able to run their own affairs. After some religious conflicts broke out, a group of nobles demanded that he be removed, which Philippe agreed to. The religious issues persisted as Calvinism began to grow. Many nobles argued for religious tolerance because they themselves harboured Calvinist beliefs or simply felt that it was the best way to ensure peace. The most notable of these nobles were William of Orange, also known as William the Silent, Lamoral, the Count of Egmont, and Philippe de Montmorency, the Count of Horn. In 1566, many nobles across the 17 provinces came together to agree on a petition which demanded a halt to the persecution of Calvinists for the governor of the Netherlands, Margaret of Parma. This petition was backed by Catholics and Protestants alike, since many felt that the persecutions would lead to rebellion and also that these matters were for local lords and not the King of Spain. Margaret agreed to temporarily halt the persecutions until she heard from King Philippe. This was supposed to secure peace, but instead it led to Calvinists openly worshipping outside of cities in what is called hedge preaching. This upset the Catholics, and so tensions rose, and it wasn't long before violence erupted. Many of these hedge preachers who travelled the countryside attempting to convert people and giving Protestant sermons denounced the use of images in the church as idolatry. In the south, many of those who listened to these sermons began to take action and started destroying images in churches known as iconoclasm. This violence, known as the iconoclastic fury, spread north.
That's just going to turn into a full-on religious warfare, you know? It's just going to turn into a war.
And the resulting violence shattered any chance of a lasting peace, and Margaret decided to crush any dissenters. The division saw Egmont and Horn side with the king, whereas William stood against them. Restoring order was fairly easy for the well-trained Catholic forces, who were reinforced in 1567 by 10,000 men led by Fernando Alvarez de Toledo, the Duke of Alba. Alba established the Council of Troubles to restore order and punish those who had rebelled. He had Horn and Egmont arrested and executed for their earlier proposal of religious toleration, whereas William managed to flee to the Holy Roman Empire. In 1568, William started a campaign of armed resistance against the Spanish rulers of the 17 provinces, thus beginning the Dutch Revolt in the 80 Years' War. William's campaign was fairly unsuccessful, with few notable victories or losses on land. On sea, however, his revolt was much more successful. He made great use of privateers, known as sea beggars, whom he tasked with raiding Spanish shipping in the ports along the coast. Alba, who was now the governor of the Netherlands, was not too concerned with William and much more with restoring Catholicism and increasing tax revenue for Spain. He did this by raising a new tax, the 10th penny, a 10% tax on all transactions, which upset literally everyone, particularly the merchant class. In France, their own Protestant rebels, called Huguenots, were gaining greater influence in the French court, and Alba was worried about an invasion. As such, he moved his army south, leaving some of the cities in the north completely undefended. The sea beggars, who had been kicked out of English ports by Elizabeth I in early 1572, took the ports of Brill and Vlissingen, which led to many of the towns in the province of Holland declaring themselves for the rebels. The notable exception was Amsterdam, which remained loyal to the Spanish crown and the Catholic Church.
Really?
The province of Zeeland also sided with the rebels, whom were now centred at the city of Dordrecht. Utrecht. It was here the rebels met and declared William both Stadtholder of Holland and the leader of the rebellion. Alba counterattacked in late 1572, and it was after his troops retook the city of Naarden here that they slaughtered its entire population. The Spanish were successful early on, but their advance slowed, and in 1573 Alba was replaced by Louis de Requesens. Spain's primary issue here was money, specifically the lack of it. Spain had recently declared bankruptcy, and so Requesens couldn't fund his troops, and so they mutinied, sacking the town of Antwerp in what is known as the Spanish Fury. This turned pretty much everyone, Catholic and Protestant, against the Spanish army. Requesens died in 1576, achieving little, and Spanish troops were still rioting up and down the country. The Spanish soldiers currently setting fire to everything made everyone in the 17 provinces nervous, and so they came to a compromise. This compromise, called the Pacification of Ghent, created a defensive alliance against the rioting Spanish soldiers, but was not a call for independence from Spain. The next year, William of Orange returned to the Netherlands and was welcomed as a hero. He wasn't the only one who had made their way to the 17 provinces though. John of Austria, Requesens' replacement as governor, was now there too. John, of Battle of Lepanto fame, took the liberty of dying the next year and was succeeded as governor by Alejandro Farnesio. The unity built by the Pacification of Ghent was starting to break down since there was less unruly Spanish troops and religious tensions were rising again. Amsterdam had up until this point remained firmly Catholic, but its ruling council was overthrown by Calvinists in 1578.
Sorry, I'm not reacting as much as I normally would. I'm just, I want to listen to every word, and this guy's just flying.
Across many of the northern provinces, the rights of Catholics were being whittled away and Calvinists were seizing any opportunity they could to secure religious change. By 1579, the Concord had essentially broken down and two new unions had formed. In the south, the Union of Arras, which declared its loyalty to the Spanish throne and denounced Protestantism. In the north, the Union of Utrecht, which wished to end what they considered to be Spanish despotism and allow for freedom of conscience. The Union of Utrecht, also known as the United Provinces, whose capital was Antwerp, acted as a single entity, pooling its resources and creating a common army. William had also appealed to the English for help and had received John Norris and a small English army to aid them. Norris wasn't particularly successful, but he did take the city of Mechelen, which he promptly sacked in what is known as the English Fury. In 1581, at The Hague, here, the Plakat van Verlatingen, or the Act of Abjuration, was signed, which declared the United Provinces free and independent states, and Philippe II...
I know it's kind of fast, but you guys see that? We're free and Spain sucks.
...deposed as king. William then invited Francis, the Duke of Anjou, the brother and heir of the French king and a Catholic, to become sovereign of the Netherlands. Most of the provinces basically ignored him because he had no real power, and some refused to acknowledge him at all, like Antwerp. Anjou attempted to take Antwerp by deceit in 1583, but his men were massacred in what is known as the French Fury, and so he fled to France. This wasn't ideal for William, but things would get better for him the next year, and by better I mean worse, because he was assassinated by gunshot. How modern. So over the previous few years the war had turned in Spain's favour, because Farnesio, who became the Duke of
I mean, back in the 1500s, you had to get pretty damn close to shoot him with a gun. Those things were so inaccurate back then.
Parma in 1585 was a talented general. By 1584 he had recaptured this territory, and the next year he captured the United Provinces' capital of Antwerp, and in the wake of this 100,000 Calvinists fled to the north. This left Amsterdam as the first city of the United Provinces and the capital of resistance against Spain. In the immediate aftermath of William's death, the leadership of the United Provinces was somewhat troubled. Robert Dudley, a close friend of Elizabeth I, took the position of governor of the Netherlands, which was basically a declaration of war against Spain. Dudley had a tendency of interfering in the affairs of the Dutch, which was kind of why they revolted in the first place. Dudley had two major opponents, Maurice of Nassau, William's son, and Johan van Oldenbarnevelt. By 1587, Dudley had suffered a series of military defeats and his authority lay in ruin, so he left the United Provinces and returned to England. The problems with finding a monarch emboldened and legitimised those calling for an end to the monarchy. As such, in 1588 the United Provinces were declared a confederation and a republic. It was also in this year that Philippe II launched his armada against Elizabeth of England. The next year saw a Protestant, Henry IV, take the French throne, whom Philippe promptly intervened against. This relieved some of the pressure on the Dutch, who were now under the leadership of Johan and Maurice. Johan was quick to streamline the government and improve trade, whereas Maurice was crucial in reforming and professionalising the Dutch army. By 1590,
so that's actually a decent amount of improvement.
1998, the year of Philippe II's death, the Dutch had retaken this territory. The Dutch Republic wanted to increase its trade to fund the war, and so sent ships far and wide to find markets across the Indian Ocean, which led to the very lucrative spice trade. In 1602, to reduce the risk that came with this trade and to help increase profits, Dutch merchants formed the VOC, the Dutch East India Company, which would have a monopoly on trade and the right to wage war and make treaties. Furthermore,
I mean, that's huge. The Dutch East India Trade Company, like, there's so much history behind that.
Banking reforms and an efficient system of funding the army meant that the Republic started to become much wealthier. The Spanish forces were led by Ambrogio Spinola, who, like Maurice, was a very capable general and managed to push the Dutch back to here by 1607. Even though Spain had made peace with France and England by this time, the war's financial burden was starting to hurt, so Spain asked for a truce which was finalised in 1609. This truce basically acknowledged the Dutch Republic's independence and even reopened trade between it and Spain. Its valuable spice trade, combined with its near dominance of the Baltic Sea trade, meant that without the financial burdens of war, the Dutch became rich. Very rich. This was aided by the educated and skilled Calvinists who fled north in the previous decades, bringing valuable trade and manufacturing expertise with them. With peace established, only one major issue remained: religion. Both Catholics and Protestants...
Oh God, that's never going to end. Maybe they had a solution for it, but I mean, people have been battling over religion for forever. You know, I mean, it's always been one religion against another, and nobody can seem to get along.
Had fought against the Spanish, but Catholics found themselves quickly sidelined. The main religious division was between the Calvinists and the Remonstrants. The Remonstrants were led by Olden Barnevelt and a man called Hugo Grotius, and when anti-Remonstrant riots broke out in Holland, they raised troops to crush it. This was seen as a step too far, and so Maurice had them arrested. Grotius was imprisoned and Olden Barnevelt was beheaded in 1619. The truce was only meant to last 12 years and wasn't renewed, meaning war broke out again in 1621. This soon became part of the broader 30 Years' War, and it ended with Spain finally acknowledging the Dutch Republic's independence in 1648. For Spain, the most powerful state in the world at this time, losing to the Dutch was a great embarrassment, and the Dutch revolt is seen by some as the beginning of its decline. For the Dutch, it was only the beginning of their complicated and often bumpy rise to prominence, a prominence which would attract many jealous enemies and require the new republic to fight continuously for its independence for many centuries to come. Perhaps one of the greatest legacies of the Dutch revolt is that a major European power was now a republic, an idea that would have a profound effect on the rest of global history. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you for watching. And a special...
No, actually, that's a very good point. I mean, at the end of the day, it just... I mean, it was a stressful journey, you know. And again, sorry I didn't react as much, but I really was just so focused on that video because he was flying through it. Had very, very few pauses. Anyway, I would argue that one of the things that really came out of it was, like he said towards the end, just how it would further influence other people in the future, you know? But anyway, hope you guys dug it. Tomorrow we're going to watch some more Al Murray. I'm really excited for this one. I'm really excited for some jokes about Americans. And, yeah, till then, I love y'all. I'm out.